In the last devotion I shared, we were looking at the beginning of Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. There, the Apostle Paul said this: "Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and of one mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others." It's funny to me that Paul is good with prison. He's good with isolation, good with hunger, good with facing his potential death. But what bothers him is disunity. Of all the things that Paul was facing that could jeopardize Paul's joy, it's disunity. As I shared last week, and as you know, this is such a challenge in our day. In this instance, the church is no different than the culture in which we find ourselves. We are polarized. We are divided. For Paul, this should not be so. And twice in verse 2, Paul talks about our minds being like-minded and of one mind. And those are sandwiched between having the same love and being one of one spirit. How do we do this in the church? Like, how do we do this when we just don't see eye to eye? And I'm not entirely sure. Like, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around this, but there are two principles that help me in dealing with this passage. The first principle is let Scripture inform Scripture. Ask yourself, is there any passage that shines light and helps me to understand what Paul means here? And there are a number of passages. In Acts 15, Paul and Barnabas disagree over whether to take John Mark on their second missionary journey. And throughout Paul's letters, we find evidence of his disagreement with those that claim that Gentile followers of Jesus needed to be circumcised and follow Jewish food laws. In neither of these instances did Paul just accept the position of the other for the sake of harmony. So whatever it means, surely being like-minded cannot mean the immediate jettison of our beliefs in favor of another's, because Paul didn't do that in his own life and ministry. So it's not that simple. The second principle that helps as we approach a passage like this is obey what you understand. We might not know what it means to pursue like-mindedness or be of one mind, one heart with one believer that we disagree with. But do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. That's pretty clear. So is in humility, love others above yourselves and not looking out for your own interests, but to the interests of others. When you come to a passage that you don't understand, ask yourself, is there something here I do understand? Is there something here I can lovingly obey? And let's start there. I love how the Message puts Jesus' words in John 8. If you stick with this, living out what I tell you, you are my disciples, for sure. Then you will experience for yourselves the truth, and the truth will free you. Sometimes obedience is the key that unlocks understanding. Where we don't really get it until we start. Once we start to do it, then it makes sense. So let's start to do it. Let's start to live out. Let's be obedient to what Paul says here. And grace be with you all.